And mic check 1 2. Hello, hello, welcome. This is Just Human, episode 369, and this is a document-heavy, indictment-focused episode. We have 4 new indictments to go over. I'm going to go through them as concisely as I can, but we're going to dig into the actual paperwork and see what's going on with these. We have the SPLC indictment. We have an indictment against Cole Allen, who recently attempted to assassinate Trump officials, probably Trump himself, at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. There's a indictment related to COVID-19. It's against Dr. David Morens, who misled government officials, misled scientists, and deceived the public about the true origins of COVID-19. And there's a new indictment against former FBI Director James Comey. And it feels like Christmas. We got 4 indictments to go over. I am a range of excited about each one. The first 3 I mentioned, I'm very excited about. The 4th one with Comey, I'm rolling my eyes about. But we'll get to that here in a moment. Hercules is excited too. Athena's excited. You can see Hercules' tail wagging in the corner of the screen. So I'm going to get through these indictments. Welcome, glad you're here. If you like court docs, you are in the right place. I need to find where's the button? There we go. All right. My link tree is in the description of this show. It's also in the profile wherever you're watching or listening to this. And on my link tree, you can find all the places to follow me, all the places to watch my podcast, and all the places to listen to my podcast. You can also find playlists on Rumble and YouTube about specific cases. So like with the indictments we covered today, there's going to be playlists for each one of those on Rumble and YouTube. And all the ways to support the show are down here at the bottom. Vincent Honey Farms, bootleg products, Manly Cans, Ko-Fi. You go there and you can either buy me a cup of coffee or you can buy something for yourself or someone you know, and they'll kick a few dollars my way out of your purchase. The best way to support the show, though, number 1 is a subscription to justhuman.substack.com. That's where I put out the podcast in both video and audio format. It's where I do my long form articles, and it's where I put out my short form articles, which is my newsletter, the Just Cases newsletter, which I was already doing a series on 4 assassination plots against Trump in 2024. I guess I'm going to have to add another installment to continue it and have assassination attempts post election. We'll see what happens with the Allen thing. It is there's a bit of a humorous, it's deadly serious. Truly, it's deadly serious, but I can't help but giggle a little bit because it does seem like he Naruto ran the security service checkpoint and then tripped and fell and his shotgun was jammed. Not sure exactly yet. There's a hearing today on his detention, and I'm not sure if any new information came out on just how Secret Service was able to apprehend Allen, but it appears, and it seems like, based on pieces of information that we've gathered over the past several days, that he simply tripped on the carpet. He simply tripped and fell, and also his shotgun failed to eject around. And so, I mean, it just thankfully Allen screwed up big time. Thankfully. All right. Let's talk about the SPLC indictment first. It brings me great joy to see this, to see a case titled United States v. Southern Poverty Law Center. US v. SPLC. It gives me great joy to just see that right there and to see that it's a criminal indictment, because this group has been a nefarious and anti-free speech, anti-political discourse, just absolutely horrible organization that has made our politics worse over the past 10 plus years. Well, going back further than that, but in my direct experience, the Southern Poverty Law Center has put targets on conservatives and conservative orgs and on Christians, and they have done everything they can to tear at the fabric of our society and of our politics. They have made somehow made their way into an esteemed uh, position where they inform some of the largest corporations and universities on who is persona non grata and who is persona protected. They regularly issue reports to universities, to corporations, and to government institutions, telling them who the extremes are, who the baddies are, and the result of it has been blacklist. I've been blacklisted from some corporations and banks as a direct result of the Southern Poverty Law Center and of Media Matters. I've had I've been personally affected by this group. And probably you have too, or you know someone who has been. Maybe it's your church, maybe it's your greater church organization, maybe it's mission work, maybe it's a political person that you supported and the SPLC has made a point uh, to degrade and to insult that person, and has affected their ability to raise money and run for political office, or has affected your church's ability to raise money. Um, really can't say enough bad things about this group, but there's way more to say about them. They also partner. I'll go ahead and jump to this with them. I was going to save this, but I've already teed it up. They also are they're one of the big partners with CARE, and they are a node of the Red Green Alliance that we've talked about before, which is the alliance between Islamists and the left, radical leftists and radical Islamists, who both seek to tear down American society. And they work together to do it. The SPLC and the Muslim Brotherhood are proud partners in that effort. Perhaps worst of all, although all of that is bad, I'm not sure if this is worst of all, but up there as a contender for the worst thing that they do is that they have regularly consulted and issued reports to the DOJ and the FBI and other government institutions. And it's resulted in people being unfairly treated, being unfairly investigated. Um, and they never deserved to have that kind of credibility, that kind of access, that kind of influence. They are one of the darling institutions. They become an institution. They're supposed to be a 501c3 charitable organization, but they're hardly that at all. They're an activist and influence and intelligence operation of the left. And this indictment has been a long time coming, and or at least some sort of pushback has been a long time coming. And I think that of the indictments that we've seen come out of the second Trump admin, there's been a ton that are really countless that I think are just praiseworthy. Mostly things, mostly like counterintelligence stuff and drug trafficking, gangs, violent extremist gangs. I just saw a new 764 indictment today. The DOJ and the FBI have been working so well, and they've been doing so much good for our country, restoring law and order and taking out some really bad people. And I'm very proud of them. I'm proud to have voted for this Trump admin, and I'm impressed with what the FBI and DOJ and other government apparatuses have done in this second Trump term. But this right here is like a seminal event. This is something that has the potential to have massive reverberations through our political discourse, to improve freedom of expression and political organization. This is tremendous. This is absolutely tremendous. I hope Media Matters is also going to catch a similar indictment for what they've done, and a few other groups. But this is absolutely huge, and I want to take you through some of the highlights of this indictment. This is in fact, assuming this goes all the way to trial and there's a conviction, okay? Let's say the government actually gets what they seek out of this case. Let's say they get convictions, they get significant forfeiture from the SPLC. This could be the end of the SPLC. And if this is the end of the SPLC, this is as important and as big of a win as we've had, I think, since maybe the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Because the SPLC is regarded as one of the holy cows of the left, just like Roe v. Wade was. So we're in that realm of huge things happening. And yeah, this is so great. Okay. So what the indictment is for is 6 counts of wire fraud, 4 counts of false statements to Fed insured banks, 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering. All right. Here are the highlights. SPLC is a 501c3 organization. I did a misspelling there, and they're headquartered in Montgomery, Alabama. And that's why this indictment is out of the Middle District of Alabama. So we don't have to, we're not worried here, oh, it's in New York, or it's in LA, or it's in Chicago, or it's somewhere, or DC, where there's going to be a super lefty jury. Nope, Montgomery, Alabama. The organization characterizes itself as a catalyst for racial justice in the South and beyond, working in partnership with communities to dismantle white supremacy, strengthen intersectional movements, and advance human rights of all people. This is very, very important. They characterize themselves as working in partnership with communities to dismantle white supremacy. The SPLC is funded in part on public and corporate donations. The SPLC website informs donors that, quote, your support powers our work to confront hate, stand up to injustice, and defend our civil and human rights. The website further explains that donations fund publications the SPLC distributes, including the Intelligence Report, Hate Watch, and Intelligence Project dispatches. Those are just some of the reports that they issue. They send them to Congress and the Senate. They send them to the FBI. They send them to other entities. But what's really key to highlight here and pay attention to is what they're telling their donors the money goes to. It says it supports their work to confront hate, stand up to injustice, and defend civil and human rights. Potential donors who click on the donate button are presented with a webpage that informs them that their donations will be used to pursue a bold action agenda to confront our country's most urgent challenges, uplift progressive candidates, and investigate and expose candidates using hate and extremism to gain power. According to the indictment, beginning sometime in the 1980s, the SPLC started operating a covert network of informants within various violent extremist groups. These are paid field sources, or Fs. So in this indictment, in this case, they're going to refer to these field sources as Fs. And that seems to be because that's how they're referred to within the SPLC, it says. The people who are aware of this work call them field sources or Fs. All right. So that indicates to me, just looking ahead, that indicates to me that some of the documentation that's going to be introduced in this case is going to be text messages, emails, maybe receipts for payment, something like that, that say F this or F. I don't know if it's going to be an F number, like they're going to end up referring to them here in the document, but they might refer to them as field sources or Fs in theater or Fs in the org. How many Fs do we have in this group? Or can we find someone to work for us as an F? So that we're going to see some sort of communication that identifies them under those labels. And so the indictment goes ahead and calls them Fs, and then it gives them a number. Other thing to notice is that this goes back to the 1980s. The charged conduct here doesn't go all the way back to the 1980s. However, as this case proceeds, I do wonder if there's going to be a superseding indictment that pulls in more conduct that they're going to end up charging. Probably not all the way back to the 1980s, but this case specifically goes after activities between 2014 and 2023. I don't think in 2024 and 2025 the SPLC was doing nothing. But for now, the indictment and the charges are based on activities that they were engaged in between in this 10-year period, right? I do expect a superseding indictment at some point that's going to bring in more charges, maybe for just that period, but it could be beyond that period, such as in 2024 during the last election. From 2014 to 2023, the SPLC transferred over $3 million, quote, to Fs who associated with various violent extremist groups. The SPLC took steps to move this money in a clandestine manner so as to hide the fact that it was going to people in these groups. That money was then used for the benefit of the individuals as well as the violent extremist groups. Examples: F-37, and that this is going to start a string of examples. So what we're doing in this segment really is I'm going to take you through the highlights of this indictment. Examples of Fs and their activities and the money they sent. F number 37. All right, pause. There being an F-37 indicates to me, or it kind of presupposes the existence of F-1 through 36, doesn't it? This indictment is going to give you an example of each F. But I'm wondering if, as this goes forward, maybe more charges will drop as they put together information on the activities of each F. I don't know. Maybe there's only like 5 or 6 who actually engaged in chargeable conduct, or who they have the information to charge. But there's a lot of field sources, and I just would not be surprised if we learn about if there end up being 3 or 4 dozen field sources who end up being witnesses, or there end up being charges based on the activities that they engaged in. It won't be all of them, I'm sure. Probably some of them, they weren't very good field sources, right? Maybe they didn't actually do anything, or maybe there's not enough evidence to charge. But seeing F-37, I'm like, whoa, how many cooperating witnesses does DOJ have against the SPLC? Because there could be a lot. All right, F-37 was a member of the online leadership chat group that planned the 2017 Unite the Right event in Charlottesville, Virginia, and attended the event at the direction of the SPLC. That is huge. At the direction of the SPLC. F-37 made racist postings under the supervision of the SPLC. SPLC secretly paid F-37 more than $270,000 between 2015 and 2023. Now, as you probably know, the Unite the Right event in Charlottesville, Virginia has had an extraordinary place in our political discourse and in the political history of the right, of Trump's presidency, and has been a huge negative against Trump and against MAGA since that event. I so wish Scott Adams was here to see this indictment and to see the pendulum swing the other way, to see things flip all the way back to where we have such clarity on what that event was. And Scott saw through the hoax, and he worked so hard to educate people and to equip us to counter the leftist lies about Trump and about MAGA that got attached to us, primarily by Unite the Right event. I mean, it's one of the most key things. It's one of the most common things that is used. It's definitely in the top 5 common things that are used to characterize MAGA and Trump as racist, is that Unite the Right event. And here we see that event was planned in partnership with the SPLC, that one of their field sources who they paid over $250,000 to attended that event at the direction of the SPLC, that person made racist postings under the supervision of the SPLC, also helped coordinate transportation to the event for several attendees. It was even more of a hoax than Scott Adams or anyone else knew. And it has been used as an instrument of political force, a weapon of in politics against Trump and MAGA for 10 years now, almost. Now we learn it was a product of the SPLC. There is speculation about who F-37 is. Some people think there's a strong chance it's actually Nick Fuentes, because he was at that event and he was one of the key people in the planning of that event, and he did bring people with him to that event. I don't know if it's him. I would like to see him catch an indictment if he's engaged in some chargeable conduct. I did see he assaulted a woman on his front porch the other day. I don't know. Maybe we'll find out who this F-37 is. I think it's probably a name that is out there. Maybe not a name, maybe not Nick Fuentes, but it's probably a name that is. I think he could be identified. Once we learn a bit more in the case, I think we'll get some clues and this person will be identified who this was. All right, F9. F9 is affiliated with a neo-Nazi org. He did fundraising for the group. The SPLC used F9 as a source for over 20 years. So for over 20 years, they maintained a relationship with someone inside a neo-Nazi group. They paid him over $1 million across that time period to be a source within a group that they were reportedly, in what they told their donors, they were working to dismantle and to confront. In 2014, F9 illegally entered the headquarters of the group, the neo-Nazi group, and stole 25 boxes of documents from that neo-Nazi organization. Those materials were then copied in coordination with, quote, a high-level SPLC employee who had knowledge the documents were stolen. Well, that's a crime. It doesn't matter that the organization is neo-Nazi. You still can't break into their organization and steal things from them and then copy those things you stole. And this SPLC employee committed a crime in knowingly copying those documents. The stolen materials were later returned in a second illegal entry to the headquarters. The SPLC used information in those copied and stolen materials for publications on their website. And then it gets worse. F-39 was also part of that neo-Nazi org, and the SPLC paid F-39 $6,000 to falsely take responsibility for the theft that F9 had committed. That is a huge crime. They paid someone to falsely plead or take responsibility for that theft. I don't know if this person was charged. I don't know if there's a case against this person, if the cops got involved and over the theft, and if this guy stepped up and said he did it and then he ended up taking a charge. But if there was a criminal proceeding against this F9 person, that makes it a whole nother level of criminality here. And I would not be surprised to see charges for the SPLC employee who knew about the stolen documents and then used them for publications, and whoever was involved in paying this other person to take falsely take responsibility for the theft. All right, F unknown. I don't know how many F unknowns there are. And when I saw that these other ones have numbers, but this one doesn't have a number. I thought that was curious, and there could be a whole bunch of F unknowns. Maybe we'll get a filing at some point in this case that tells us just how many field sources total that investigators have been able to identify that the SPLC was using in these groups across the years. I don't know, but this one was a imperial wizard of the United Clans of America. F-27 was an officer in the National Socialist Movement. He was also in the Aryan Nations affiliated Sadistic Souls motorcycle club, and the SPLC secretly paid him over $300,000 between 2014 and 2020. It doesn't give us any more information about that, but I wonder what work he was doing. Maybe paying them to show up at certain places, and then the media would come out and film these racist, Aryan Nation, socialist, Nazi people at some MAGA event, and then use that to characterize MAGA as being in some way affiliated with these groups, when really they'd been paid to show up at the direction of the SPLC. I suspect that's the kind of thing that was going on. F-42. He was chairman of the National Alliance, which is a Nazi org. The SPLC website maintained an extremist file webpage on this person. But at the same time, they maintained a webpage on him, highlighting him as one of the extremists that they're fighting against, and the chairman of a group they're working to dismantle, as they told donors. The SPLC was also secretly paying him. They ended up paying him $140,000 over the course of 2016 through 2023. F-30. He was a leader in the National Socialist Party of America, so Nazi, former director of the Aryan Nations, former member of the KKK. SPLC website had an extremist file on him as well. And the SPLC was also secretly paying him over $70,000 between 2014 and 2016. F-43, national president of the American Front, Nazi org, federal felon convicted of cross burning. He was paid $19,000 by the SPLC between 2016 and 2019. What were these people being paid to do? I don't think they were being paid to dismantle the organizations from within. F unknown, another F unknown, was a member of the KKK and was married to an exalted cyclops of the KKK. So I take it that this is a female. I don't know that exalted cyclops can be female. I think they have to be male. So that indicates to me that this F unknown is a female. F unknown and their spouse were involved in litigation whereby the KKK applied to take part in the Adopt a Highway program. During the course of the litigation, known payments were traced from the SPLC to F unknown, which exceed $3,500. So, a small amount of money comparatively to what others were paid. But was this to create a fake scandal where the KKK was trying to adopt a highway and then therefore was making national headlines, creating the impression that the KKK was being more overt and they're trying to, show up more in the community, and then the SPLC was fundraising off of that? F-11. F-11 was one of an undisclosed number of Fs that the SPLC used to indirectly funnel money to other violent extremist group leaders. The SPLC transferred over $160,000 from a fictitious entity to F11, who then sent the funds to various violent extremist group leaders, including former Grand Wizard of the KKK. And the indictment highlights here, while the SPLC sought donations to dismantle, that's the word they use, to dismantle these racist groups, they were actually using an individual inside one of these groups to transfer over $160,000 to the leaders of the violent extremist groups. The best analogy for this that I can possibly think of is the firefighter being the arsonist. That's what this is. The SPLC represents the firefighter, the volunteer firefighter, the community-funded firefighter, but they're paying people to go and start the fires that they then show up and put out, and then they ask the public for more money to fight fires. That is what is going on here. And really, arsonist is a great, it's a pretty workable metaphor for what the SPLC does, because they start fires politically, and they seek to damage and burn down good candidates, religious institutions. They are arsonists, political arsonists. All right, how are they moving this money around? Well, this is where the fictitious entities come in, and this is where the wire fraud. Remember the charge here. The charges here are wire fraud, or at least some of the charges are wire fraud, and this is where those wire fraud charges come in. In order to secretly funnel donated funds to the Fs, individuals at the SPLC, including a person who would become the chief financial officer, they're identified as employee 1, and a person who would become the director of the intelligence project, they are identified as employee 2, among others, opened a series of bank accounts at Bank 1 and Bank 2 in the name of various fictitious entities. Those entities were Center Investigative Agency, or CIA, Fox Photography, Northwest Technologies, Tech Writers Group, and Rare Books Warehouse. So they had these people create fictitious entities that had bank accounts at 2 different banks. Okay. They were not real, and they didn't have any employees, and they conducted no actual business. They were just the names on the account to appear like they were real businesses. Counts 1 through 6 are wire fraud because the SPLC devised a scheme and artifice to defraud donors and to obtain money and property from those donors by materially false and fraudulent premises, representations, promises, and omissions. And it's going to be really hard, I think, for them to get around these wire fraud charges because they took the steps to create fake businesses with bank accounts, and they disconnected them from the actual SPLC that was taking in the donations, and they laundered the money. There's also a money laundering charge. They laundered the money through individuals into these accounts, and then those accounts paid the Fs. If what SPLC was doing was above board, if there was nothing about it that was criminal or unethical, then why go through all of these steps to deceive the bank, which is a federally insured bank, which is how it gets federal charges for this. So the objective of the scheme and the artifice was to obtain money via donations through materially false representations and omissions about what the donated funds would be used for. The SPLC explicitly sought donations under the auspices that donor money would be used to help dismantle violent extremist groups. SPLC solicitations for donations did not inform donors that some of the donated funds were to be used by the SPLC to pay high-level leaders of violent extremist groups and others. Donors were never told that some of the donated funds were used for the benefit of violent extremist groups. Donors were not told that some of the donated funds would be used in the commission of state and federal crimes. Examples of wire transfer from the SPLC fictitious bank. Here we have some of those uh, transactions for various amounts of money, ranging between $1,000 and $4,700. Counts 7 through 10 are false statements to a Fed-insured bank. The purpose of opening these bank accounts for the fictitious entities was to be able to conduct financial transactions that made it appear as if the Fs were receiving money from fictitious entities rather than receiving the donations from the SPLC. Some of the false statements that they made for these different banks were right here. December 20th, employee 1 certified that they were the sole owner of the Center Investigative Agency. And it was their business that they were operating. It was a trade name of their business. December 20th, they also, employee 1 identified Fox Photography as being their business that they were the sole proprietor of. Same date, employee 1 identified, what's that one? Northwest Technologies. And then also they identified Tech Writers Group as their sole business, when really it was the SPLC's money going through it. Oops, I lost my place in the thread. Where'd that go? That was right there. Okay. In 2020, Bank One conducted an internal investigation into these accounts. So 4 years after they had been opened. This resulted in those accounts being closed and the monies in them transferred to an account in the SPLC's name. That's important because they're not going to be able to argue, hey, that was just that one employee was doing this on their own, and they didn't have permission from the SPLC to do what they were doing. It was just that person. It wasn't the actual SPLC. Well, if that's the case, then why did, when they got discovered, why did all the money go to the SPLC out of those accounts if it wasn't the SPLC involved in it? On September 9th, 2021, the SPLC's president and CEO, as well as the board chair, admitted in writing that the accounts listed below were opened for the benefit of the SPLC operations and operated under the center's authorities. So, and that's a direct quote of what they said about these. So they're not going to be able to blame shift this to an employee. That was something I thought about as I was first reading the indictment, that they may just blame this on the employees. They may scapegoat some employees as overzealous, and they were trying to run an intelligence operation and it got out of hand and they were dealing with bad people, and that happens sometimes. But you run into this problem. Count 11. Conspiracy to commit money laundering. The SPLC operated a conspiracy to conduct financial transactions designed to conceal the true nature, source, ownership, and control of fraudulently obtained donated money from the SPLC that they paid to the Fs. The SPLC, after funds were moved from Rare Books, that fake account at Bank 2, they then loaded the money onto pay cards issued to the Fs, who were supposedly employees of the fictitious entity. Another layer of how they were concealing the money came from the SPLC. The SPLC put the money in the fake book account, this one Rare Books, but the fictitious business entity. And then that entity went and bought pay cards and then gave those pay cards to the Fs inside the violent extremist groups. In moving funds this way, the SPLC further concealed the true nature and ownership and source and control of the donated funds that the SPLC was giving to the Fs. After Bank One's internal investigation prompted the closing of the accounts there, the SPLC came up with a new method of conducting financial transactions designed to conceal the true nature, source, and ownership and control of the donated funds that the SPLC was paying to the Fs. The SPLC used an ACH system to pay Fs, with donated funds masked the transactions with monikers such as Rare Books 050 and IP Research Con 050. So they came up with these fake labels for the transactions that would make it look like it wasn't them just giving money to a person. It was them buying something or ordering something. If convicted of counts 1 through 6 and or 11, the SPLC will face forfeitures. And I think here is where this can really damage the SPLC to the point where it folds or is just no longer effective. It's going to cost them a lot of money if they get convicted on this stuff, which I think they will. And you think about how much money the SPLC raised off of this firefighter paying arsonist to light fires in the community. How much money did they pay or did they make while they were paying these people in these same groups to engage in the activity they were fundraising off of? How much money do you think they made as a direct result of the Unite the Right rally, which has received media attention for years and years and years? In 2017, the SPLC was estimated to have financial resources of over $500 million. By 2023, it was $750 million. Those years fall within the relevant time period of this indictment. So I'm going to say that the amount of forfeiture that the SPLC might be looking at here is over $250,000. Or $250 million. $250 million. Because between the Unite the Right rally and 2023, they gained at least $250 million in resources. I've seen estimates that at this time, the SPLC is worth around $1 billion or has $1 billion in assets and cash. And there are rules about, and I'm not an expert on them at all. I'm barely familiar with them at all. There are rules about how much money a 501c3 can have on hand, and like what they do. They can't just hoard that money. They have to spend so much of it. And I saw speculation that SPLC, they might be in trouble with the IRS and the I can't think of it now. I can't think of not Treasury. I think it's one of the organs under Treasury. I don't remember, but they might be facing a financial indictment, like an IRS criminal case against them for how they functioned as a 501c3, because of how they were handling their money and storing it and stockpiling the money. So they could be looking at some sort of forfeiture action over on that side of things too. So really happy about this. Really happy about this. Now, since they have gotten indicted, they have hired attorneys, and lo and behold, there's Abby David Lowell. Not surprised to see his name here. And then there's Kropf Mosley Schmidt, PLLC. This firm is like an all-female led DC firm. And they are famous for something. I looked it up. It's these ladies right here. They were the first attorneys to sign on to the SPLC case. And then Abby Lowell came in, and a couple others have too. I'm sure there's going to be people that are like, doing pro bono for them. And like, what was the case they won? There was something they were involved in that was, that made news. Let's see. Anyway, they're a all-female led law firm. There's also, let's see, Bradley Arendt Bolt Cummings law firm is here. That's Lowell and Associates. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lawyers so far have signed on to represent the SPLC. Let's see. We have all the filings of the attorneys saying they're here. All right, so here's the first action that they've taken. First action they've taken is motion to disclose transcript of grand jury proceedings. And then also a motion to address the government's materially false statements and enforce rules prohibiting prejudicial extrajudicial statements. So this has to do with Cash and Todd Blanche and others talking to the media about the case. They want to shut that down, which honestly, I'm fine with them talking about the case and just highlighting the allegations, but I don't like when DOJ and FBI people go on and on about a case. And I don't like it when Trump does either, because people in the executive branch, once the case is announced like this, and it's all going to play on the court of law, and they should just keep things very, very tight. They should keep their comments reserved because it can be used against them. I want to see in this grand jury thing if there's anything in here that is of unique interest to us. Okay, yeah, there's a few interesting things in here. I'm going to make it a separate video because I want to go into the next indictment. But already we're starting off. It's already kicked off with motions. Sweet. All right. I'm excited about this case. All right, next. Let's talk about let's do the assassination attempt. I'm gonna grab that case. All right, United States v. Allen. We have a new assassination attempt let me try that again. All right, United States v. Allen. Over the past weekend, there was another assassination attempt at Trump and Trump officials, and it was conducted by this educator, a teacher from California, an educated man, an engineer, someone that seemed to have like a stable life, but was immersed, it seems, in left-wing violent rhetoric and decided he was going to do something about it, unfortunately. And thankfully, he encountered the United States Secret Service and they were able to stop him. And also, thankfully, he seemed to be a bit incompetent in how he carried out this thing. And it didn't work out. The only person injured in the event was Allen, and then one Secret Service agent was injured because he took a round to his Kevlar vest. Thankfully, it hit him in his protective vest. Of course, that's going to leave some bruising, definitely painful, but he's alive. And Allen never made it anywhere near the VIPs that were one floor down and on a completely different level over in the ballroom of this Hilton. So this happened in DC at the Washington Hilton, as I'm sure you're aware. Hey, so while I was editing this video, it had already gone over some crummy footage of Cole Allen engaging Secret Service. And I was editing that. U.S. Attorney Pirro for DC released really, really good footage of Cole Allen. And so let's just take a look at that. I'm re-recording this, and I'm just gonna have to edit my video and splice this in over a bunch of stuff that is now useless. A bunch of analysis that is now useless because we have really good video instead of the crappy one. But I'll leave this warning in. I'm not sure how much editing I'll do, but there is an AI enhanced video out there that added some clarity and smoothness to the original surveillance footage that went around. But that AI video also added in and removed things that are important, such as it created a person out of a bench who isn't really there, and it removed the shotgun from Allen's hands. So that AI video, while it helps us in some respects, it also messed things up. And now there's a bunch of midwits going around claiming that this whole thing was staged and that the video is edited and all of this stuff. And it just goes to show that AI can be really helpful in some instances, but it's a double-edged sword and you got to be careful about it. So, all right. So here's Allen walking around the day before and looking at the gym and just like checking the place out. And this doesn't really help us a whole lot, but it shows him just walking around and he's just inspecting. And he goes through the gym area. Now, this hallway is, I think, on the other side of where the interaction would eventually be. Let me grab that same image I had used earlier, because I believe that this is, I think he's walking down one of these hallways, this curved section. He might be, I don't think he's down on this floor yet, the ballroom floor. I think he's still in the terrace level. And those look like, just lost it. These double doors right here, that says exit. This also says exit. This double doors. Look at this map again. I think he's in this hallway right here. Not positive, but I'm thinking he's over in that hallway. I could be mistaken. There he is coming back through, and he's going to come back in a moment wearing a coat, and he's got the gym video is catching him right here through the glass going out. He's going to come back in a moment with a big coat on. This is April 25th, so it's the next day, approximately 8:23 p.m. And I think he's going to come in through here, maybe. Yeah. He's got a coat on, and I think he's got that shot. He's got the shotgun and the knives. He's gone up to his room and he's armed himself. So see, I think what has happened is he scoped out that he could get to his room through this side, and then he's going to come down this hallway and approach where the magnetometers are right here, trying to get to these stairs that'll take him down to the ballroom area on the floor below. So you're watching him walk down this hallway. He's going to come through here, and you're going to see a camera that's located about this place right here. (8:23 p.m. Saturday). You can even tell by how he's walking, he's got something under his coat. That right arm is stiff and not swaying, the same as his left arm, because it's trying to hold back the shotgun that he has around his shoulder. He's got the knives on him and the pistol. And then here, I'll go ahead and take my picture, my video out so that you can more clearly see what happens in the corner down here. All right. So I don't want you to miss what just happened. Down this hallway, see, they got the two magnetometers set up. And this one on the right, they're going to end up folding it down because they're having a little bit of trouble with it. Zoom in a little bit more. Over in this corner is where you need to watch. There he is. He's going to walk through these double doors into this room. And a security guard with a dog takes notice of him. Right there. You can see the dog walk over there. It's on a leash. I don't know if that guy is Secret Service, if he's U.S. Capitol Police. I don't know. These people are Secret Service. It says Police Secret Service underneath. Police Secret Service. That's what all these guys are, and so is this man. But this agent, I can't tell if he is also Secret Service, but his dog takes notice and is like following Alan. And he's looking. He's watching through that door, like, where'd that guy, what's that guy doing? And as soon as he starts to walk away, Alan comes out with the shotgun. And here he is running. So let's watch that just again. That was a really interesting moment. And that might be something that when they review this and they look for ways they could improve, that might be something they decide that needed to be improved upon, and that officer needed to follow him up, or Whatever. Needed to call one of these guys over. Hey, help me check this guy out. I don't know. But that dog, what a good dog. The dog was like, something's up with that guy. And the dog goes back. He yanked on its leash and the dog goes back. It's like something's up. As soon as he moves away, here comes Alan with the shotgun. He shot right here. He shot this, I think he shot this person in the middle. Let's watch that again. See, there's 1, 2, 3 Secret Service agents right there. And I believe I'm gonna change this positioning here so you all can get more of a frame. There we go. They lay this thing down. I believe he shoots this female agent. Let's watch that again. Now you can tell as you watch them, he's already down. Look at the angle that their guns are pointing. Their guns aren't pointing down a hallway. Their guns are pointing down towards the corner over here. And I think Alan tripped. We don't have any other information that says otherwise. I think he literally tripped as he was running down the hall with the shotgun. He failed to eject the shell casing from the gun, so he wasn't able to fire another round with it. And I think he just flat out, in his Naruto style running, fell down and face planted on the carpet and banged up his knee. Let's watch it again. This guy's already on the radio, calling for others, alerting them. Here comes the man back with the dog. This man has his gun drawn, gun drawn, gun drawn. This agent has her gun out as she's coming through this doorway. He's already on the ground. You can tell by their posture, the way that they're arranged. Now this guy is dropping his gun. He's going to holster it, and it's already over. Basically, I just now noticed that. I've never seen that before. Watch this section right here. They throw one of his knives away. Watch this area of the screen. You're going to see a knife come flying out. Right there. And then another one. Those look like knives to me. I think that they've got him on the ground. They've yanked the knife off and they're sliding it across the floor away from him. They're on top of him. They've got him. There's been a ton of criticism against Secret Service for their response to this, but I see reason to give them a lot of credit, which Kash Patel does, and so does the president. Both how they reacted right here where the event played out and how they reacted in the ballroom. They did a great job. Can it be improved? Sure. But the criticism is ridiculous. Here I'm pretty sure he shot this lady right here. She buckles like this and tucks away. This guy fires his gun. And I've also heard people remarking on how Secret Service fired 5 or 6 shots and didn't hit Allen. That's ridiculous. They need to go back to the range, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Think about the decision making and the calculation that agent had to go through to get this shot off, this person right here. He had to draw his weapon and get it onto Allen and discharge his shots without hitting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 other people. He had all of those other friendlies in his line of fire. And that's another thing that they might look back on this and want to improve on is, hey, at this moment, the 1 or 2 agents right here, maybe 3, that are looking down the hallway where a threat could emerge, have a bunch of friendlies in front of them. It would be better if they were positioned on the other side just in case a threat emerged from down this hallway. But hindsight's always 2020 when you go back and do these retrospectives. You can't know where the threat's going to come from. So it could be that they go back to this and they're like, okay, we need to think about our positioning in case a threat emerges down this hallway. Who's in our line of fire? Because these people, what are they doing? They're just standing there. Do we really need them in right there? Would it be better for them to stand behind just in case a threat emerges? But those are the type of things they're going to be looking back in the debriefings and trying to figure out how to improve on. But a lot of things are right. And I don't think it's, I just think it's really silly armchair quarterbacking to be attacking this guy for missing Allen. He should be praised for not accidentally shooting a friendly. Look how quickly he got his gun up. Allen is at the magnetometer, shotgun pointed at him, and this guy has his gun up and is on him. He's probably starting to pull the trigger at this moment. But look who's behind Allen. It's the agent with the dog. So this guy has to consider not hitting this friendly. Here he pulls it up and he's going to jerk the shot into her chest or abdomen. Luckily, she's wearing a bulletproof vest. There he fires. He fires, and it must have gone right by his shoulder or over his shoulder and gone over in this area. Now, I believe this guy's going to react and take cover because a bullet just zoomed by him. And then the next shot, that's 2 shots. This one is going to impact over there. And then he fires again. And again, there's the 4th shot. And we came real close to friendly fire. Real close to friendly fire. That could have played out a whole lot differently. But look how many agents just poured in. They were on this guy. And I want to see the agent that comes from the lower left. Does she come back? That's a different guy. That's a female. I wonder if that's the lady who got shot. Or if this is the guy who got shot. Someone over there in this corner got shot. Might be her. I'm not sure, but they had the vest on, so they were protected. So more how do I say this? So anyway, I guess I'll just finish that on. There's a lot of watch out for the AI video that's going around, and watch out for the claims that Allen didn't really have a gun, or that the agent wasn't shot by Allen. He was, and I would expect to see charges for that. He might catch a charge for attempted murder on a Secret Service agent or security personnel, whatever the statute is. It's either her or the guy next to her that got shot. Maybe this guy got shot. Maybe he did. The way he buckles. Maybe he did. It's one of those 3. All right, I'm going to splice this into the video. All right, so this is the checkpoint that he ran through, is this right here. And he would have to get to where Trump and them were in this room, he would have had to have made it past that security checkpoint and then get down these stairs and go into this room. They're down this level down here. And between where he was and this room were a ton of Secret Service agents at every door, around the room, in the stairwell, everywhere. I saw it estimated there were like 100 more agents between him. I don't know if that's really true that there were literally 100 in between this point and this point, but there were a lot. So let me get back to here. These are the weapons he had. This shotgun. This pistol. This is a 12 gauge. This is a 38, I believe. And then he had these knives. I want to play for you some comments from Kash Patel on the work that the Secret Service did to protect everybody.
Brave. Also,
hey, hold up. I'm working on it.
Also on scene, you were told about the brave heroics of the United States Secret Service and other members of law enforcement. And that should be celebrated by every single American. They did exactly what they were trained to do. They stopped a massive attack from becoming even worse. They stood in the way, they safeguarded America, and they should be nothing but applauded for their bravery and their dedication to their mission and their selfless sacrifice to this country.
I absolutely agree with this. And I don't have the video handy of what happened in the ballroom, but as soon as shots were fired, I mean, within 2 or 3 seconds, there were agents in front of Trump and in front of other administration officials protecting them, literally putting their bodies around Trump to make it where if Allen had gotten into that room and fired a shot at the VIPs that were on stage, it would have hit the Secret Service agents, not the president, the vice president, the first lady, and so on. I think this is the same clip. Okay. All right, I'm going to save that. So, and just to wrap that up, I agree with Kash because here's what I want to say. In the after of any event like this, when there's like a security incident, I always think about, because I'm a race fan, I always think about what happens after there's been a horrific accident in motorsport. Anytime there's an accident, whether it's an IndyCar or Formula One, especially those two series, but also in World Endurance Championship, and I don't know about NASCAR because I don't follow that. But when it's Indy and then when it's Formula One, there's all sorts of high-speed cameras around the facility. There's all sorts of really high-tech sensors in the cars. And anytime there's an accident, it is broken down frame by frame from every video. Investigators go in, people who design the chassis, people who design the safety cell, people who work on the coveralls, people who do helmet design and engineering, people who are part of the Marshal Service and the medical crew and the extraction crew, and everybody involved with the safety aspect of the sport. They do an analysis of what happened in that crash, what went wrong and what went right. And they do that so they can identify, this worked well, we should keep doing that, we should look at implementing it more, how can we improve it? And then they look at what didn't work well. That did not function as it was supposed to, or as we thought it would. Why did that happen? Was it unique to these circumstances? Is it not as strong as it needs to be? Is it not in the right place? There's this huge effort to do all that analysis, not to criticize and blame the accident on any one person or one engineer or one component of the gear the driver had, or that the car, or that the barrier at the circuit or fencing or whatever. They're not trying to blame. They're trying to understand what went right and what went wrong so that they can plan and implement changes for future incidents, and either so that they don't happen, or if they do happen, the survivability is even better. And I've been a lifelong motorsport fan, and I've watched the improvements to extreme motorsport, especially Indy and Formula One, over the past several decades. And it's been awesome. And I've now witnessed over the past like 5 to 10 years, I can't count how many times I've witnessed an accident that 20, 30 years ago would have resulted in death, but in this day and age results in minor bruising. And it's thanks to those safety improvements. And when I see an incident like this with security, and people come out and I mean, instantly start attacking Secret Service, start uh, just criticizing them, saying fire the head of Secret Service and all these things. It was the same after Butler. It rubs me the wrong way and it irritates me because I look at it as okay, what went right and what went wrong. There are definitely things that could be improved on how security was handled at the Washington Hilton and things that could be changed and implemented that make it less likely that someone is able to get as far as Allen did. But we shouldn't let our pursuit of improving those things and finding the areas where we need to improve. We shouldn't let that be at the expense of appreciating what went right. And so many things went right here. And some of it, I think, was luck. I think we got lucky with Allen. I think he tripped. It could be he got tackled, but I think he tripped. But the response to him was so quick. I mean, you look, like I was showing, look how quickly this man who down the lower left, look how quickly he reacts and realizes there's a threat coming at me. Let's find the second person to react. The second person to react is the man right next to him. That's 2 seconds into the video. They're both reacting. This guy is starting to get up. And this guy who had his gun out first, he's unfortunately his line of fire is compromised by other agents over here and agents here and this guy here. So maybe something to look at is how everybody was arranged in that moment, considering if we get rushed right here, I got a lot of friendlies in my line of fire. We should position ourselves differently. Instead of lying on each side of the hallway, maybe we should all be facing out. Little things like that. I mean, they're not that little. They can make a big improvement. And look, this agent takes off and runs down the hallway away from it. I think he's going to see if anybody else is coming. Don't know about that for sure. But we're now 4 seconds in, and there's at least 2, 3, 4 officers, weapons drawn. I think he also has his weapon out. So and then 5 seconds in, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 weapons drawn within 5 seconds. I mean, great response. And there's also the response in the ballroom with their instant action to protect the protectees and to get them out of there. So I just want to point all that out and highlight it because there's always people that are playing armchair quarterback and are quick to lobby criticism during these types of events. And I understand it, but a whole bunch went right also. And it's important that you appreciate both what went right and what could be improved upon in events after this. And fortunately, the people who actually are responsible for doing that analysis and making those improvements, they know that better than I do. And I'm sure they will. All right. So after this event happened, the FBI went into action, and within 24 hours, they had raided Cole Allen's residence. They'd spoken to a bunch of witnesses. They'd gathered a bunch of information about him. They'd gone to his hotel room, of course, and they'd gotten access to his devices. And they learned a great deal about this would-be assassin. Where is my thread? All right. And that resulted in a complaint, criminal complaint against him, not an indictment. It hasn't gone before a grand jury yet. I'm sure it will, but a criminal complaint against him. And so, according to the complaint, on April 25th, 2026 at 8:40 p.m., Cole Thomas Allen rushed U.S. Secret Service checkpoint in the D.C. Hilton, blew past the magnetometer, and fired a blast from his 12-gauge shotgun into the chest of a United States Secret Service officer. Now, I can't tell where that happened exactly. I think his gun is like right here across his chest. See, his arm goes back there. I think that's him getting his gun up and then he's pushing it forward. I don't know where the person is that he shot. I'm guessing they're just off camera. And then he trips. But according to the complaint, that's what he did. Down the hall in one floor below was the White House Correspondents Association dinner. In attendance were hundreds of media and many members of the Trump administration, including cabinet members, the VP, and President Trump. I do think it's kind of maybe not a good idea to have that many VIPs of the administration in the same room at the same time. That's a lot. Like everybody's there. I don't know. But Allen thankfully never made it to that room. Just seconds after discharging the shotgun and only a dozen or so steps past the agent he had shot, Allen fell to the ground and was tackled by United States Secret Service agents, disarmed, and arrested. Today, he was charged with attempt to assassinate the President of the United States, transportation of a firearm and ammunition in interstate commerce, and discharge of a firearm during a crime of violence. It is important that he was charged with trying to assassinate the president. That is what his manifesto says he was there to do. And, or his, I don't know about manifesto, it's probably not the wrong one. His goodbye email said he was there to do. Allen also had a 1911 .38 caliber pistol on him. Agents fired several shots at him, but he was not shot. The complaint doesn't describe how Allen fell, but, Naruto-style running only works in cartoons. So I think he may have simply tripped, as I said to you guys earlier. He did get a shot off. It does seem like he got a shot off because it hit the officer. But there is some question as to whether or not Secret Service shot one of their own in the chest as they were trying to shoot Allen. But I think Allen did it. I think he shot a Secret Service officer in the chest as he ran by. But Allen was not shot. Allen made his reservations at the hotel on April 6th and traveled by train from LA to Chicago to DC beginning on April 21st. He arrived on April 24th and checked into the Hilton. Before Allen made his assassination attempt, he scheduled an email to go out that explained what he was trying to do and why. It was titled Apology and Explanation. The email makes it clear that Allen intended to target members of the Trump administration with his weapons. He describes his reasoning for choosing buckshot rather than slugs and explains his rules of engagement and upon what basis he will prioritize targets. So there were questions like, was this guy really trying to assassinate President Trump? His own email, his own letter here makes it very clear, and I'm going to read it to you. Hello, everybody. This was an email he scheduled to go out to family and friends and associates explaining what he was doing. He expected to die doing this. So suicidal political assassination. Hello, everybody. So I may have given a lot of people a surprise today. Let me start off by apologizing to everyone whose trust I abused. I apologize to my parents for saying I had an interview without specifying it was for Most Wanted. I apologize to my colleagues and students for saying I had a personal emergency. By the time anyone reads this, I probably, most certainly, do need to go to the ER, but can hardly call that not a self-inflicted status. I apologize to all the people I traveled next to, all the workers who handled my luggage, and all the other non-targeted people at the hotel who I put in danger simply by being near. I apologize to everyone who was abused and or murdered before this. To all those who suffered before I was able to attempt this. To all who may still suffer after, regardless of my success or failure. I don't expect forgiveness, but if I could have seen any other way to get this close, I would have taken it. Again, my sincere apologies. On to why I did any of this. I am a citizen of the USA. what my representatives do reflects on me, and I am no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes. Well, to be completely honest, was no longer willing a long time ago, but this is the first real opportunity I've had to do something about it. While I'm discussing this, I'm also going to go over my expected rules of engagement, probably in a terrible format, but I'm not military, so too bad. Administration officials, not including Mr. Patel, they are targets, prioritized from highest ranking to lowest. Secret Service, they are targets only if necessary and to be incapacitated non-lethally if possible. AKA, I hope they're wearing body armor because center mass with shotguns messes up people who aren't. Hotel security, they are not targets if at all possible, unless they shoot at me. Police, Capitol Police, they are the same as hotel security. National Guard, same as hotel security. Hotel employees are not targets at all, and guests are not targets at all. In order to minimize casualties, I will also be using buckshot rather than slugs so that there will be less penetration through walls. I would still go through most everyone here to get to the targets if it were absolutely necessary, on the basis that most people chose to attend a speech by a pedophile, rapist, and traitor, and are thus complicit. But I really hope it doesn't come to that. So here is mens rea. Here is the defendant's state of mind, all written out nice and clean for us and for a jury. So they can understand that this man was intent on murder and murdering officials from Trump all down, on the way down, prioritized from Trump all the way down, but was also willing to shoot anyone who got in his way. The affidavit for his arrest is here, but it doesn't really add anything that we don't already know. I just grabbed the highlights from it there. It does say that he had minor injuries. He was transferred to the Howard University Hospital. After this, I'm thinking he had rug burn and contusions. And it says that he was advised of his Miranda rights and invoked his right to remain silent. So that's what we got. Now, there was a hearing today, and they were going to try and get him out on bond, but the defense ended up conceding and not arguing for that. So he's being held pending trial. Memorandum in support of pretrial detention is here. I'll go ahead and look at that. Let's see if this, real quickly, I haven't looked at this. Let's see if it says anything about how he was apprehended and the shotgun jamming or any of the other things that have been speculated about. Okay. It says U.S. Secret Service personnel engaged and stopped him. He was armed with a 12-gauge shotgun, 38 caliber pistol, and multiple knives and daggers, and a significant amount of ammunition for reloading as he sprinted toward the doors of the Washington Hilton ballroom. Ben was arrested on scene. He was charged with, discharge of a firearm during a crime of violence. He fired his shotgun. And I believe he fired it into the chest of a Secret Service agent. So he wouldn't be charged with that if he hadn't discharged it. There was some speculation out there that he never fired it at all, but he did. All right. Description of the dinner. We already know all this. Defendant approached a U.S. Secret Service security screening checkpoint located on the terrace level. Before the defendant approached the checkpoint, he discarded a long black coat that concealed a 12-gauge pump-action shotgun. The defendant then sprinted through one of the magnetometers at the checkpoint and ran in the direction of the stairs leading to the ballroom where the president and members of his family and the cabinet were located. So that is what I had showed you earlier, right here. He's sprinting down this way to get to these stairs. As the defendant did so, he held his shotgun in both hands in a raised position parallel to the ground. A USSS officer observed the defendant fire the shotgun in the direction of the stairs leading down to the ballroom. The officer and others at the checkpoint heard the gunshot. The officer drew his service weapon and fired 5 times at the defendant. The defendant fell to the ground, was restrained by law enforcement, and was placed under arrest. The defendant suffered minor injury to his knee but was not shot. So the officer missed, but still the guy fell. I think he tripped on his own. At the time of his arrest, the defendant was in possession of a Mossberg 12-gauge pump-action shotgun with one spent cartridge in the barrel and 8 unfired cartridges in the magazine. So he was not able to pump it and eject the shell he already fired. An additional 6 unfired cartridges were attached with Velcro to the shotgun in a detachable ammo carrier, which we saw right there. Defendant also had a Rock Island Armory 1911 38 caliber pistol with 10 rounds of ammunition and 2 additional handgun magazines. California and federal database records confirmed the defendant legally purchased those 2 weapons separately on August 17th for the pistol and October 6th of 2023. August 6th, 2023 for the pistol, August 17th, 2025 for the shotgun. At the time of his arrest, the defendant also had on his person 2 knives, 4 daggers, multiple sheaths, multiple holsters, needle nose pliers, wire cutters, and a Samsung phone. In his hotel room, officers recovered 2 additional knives, a magazine with 10 rounds of ammunition, 2 boxes, each containing 10 rounds of shotgun ammunition, half face piece respirator, a roll of duct tape, grip tape. In his bedroom in Los Angeles, they recovered 2 long gun bags, a Mossberg buttstock, pistol holder, training pistol, shotgun ammunition, and multiple electronic devices. At some point before the attack, the defendant wrote emails explaining his actions, which I just read to you guys. In a postscript to his letter, apparently written from inside the Washington Hilton, he wrote that he walked in with multiple weapons and not a single person at the hotel considered him a threat. He was amused by that. Okay, it doesn't tell us anything about how he fell, just that he fell. He took a picture of himself before he went down, and showing where all of his weapons are. And all right, so he's being held pending trial. They did file a motion for his release, but at the hearing, they ended up conceding and not arguing for it. So, all right. I'll be tracking that case, and I will add it, I suppose, at some point to my my newsletters about Trump assassins. Just Cases issue 7 is about Asif Merchant, and issue 8 is about Farhad Shakari. Upcoming issues are going to cover Thomas Crooks and Ryan Ruth. I've already got the Ryan Ruth one completely written, and I could publish it now, but I want to do Thomas Crooks first. But I'm finding that one to be, it's kind of difficult because I don't want to just regurgitate the FBI report on it, but there's not a whole lot of information about Thomas Crooks beyond the FBI report. The Ryan Ruth one is done, and that, of course, that's a clown show. All right. So, but if you're I should make the pitch. So if you're interested in following this case with me, you can go, make sure to visit my link tree, and there'll be a playlist for it on my Rumble and on my YouTube. And then also my Just Cases newsletter will cover this in a future edition. I'll be tracking this case for sure. Okay. Let me close those tabs. And now we have the COVID-19 indictment to talk about. All right, next we come to the indictment against Dr. David Morens. And there have been a bunch of indictments having to do with COVID-19 fraud over the past several years. Most of them had to do with people abusing, what was it, the PPP loans or whatever they were. Um, People abusing some of the medical device loans that were put out and grants that were put out. It was a lot of types of financial fraud indictments. But we haven't seen an indictment that had to do with the malfeasance of the response itself and of the handling of the pandemic and the origins of the virus. That's what this one does. It's not complete, doesn't completely deal with all that subject matter, but it's the biggest one yet to that end. When it comes to whether or not we're going to hold people responsible for the pandemic itself, this is the first one I've seen that actually is seeking to hold someone responsible for their role in the pandemic itself. And that is Dr. David Morens. To give you a face for what he looks like, I have him right here. This is him when he was testifying on Capitol Hill. That's him. This video is from 2024, I believe. And he was an aide to Fauci. He was a top advisor to Fauci. Fauci is not named in this indictment, but except for by title. He is. There's Peter Daszak. I guess I should include that. Peter Daszak was indicted, and what was his sentence? I'm forgetting how to spell his name now. Isn't it Peter Daszak? That's it. Peter Daszak right there. I remember he was indicted. What was the outcome of that? I want to say that he took a plea deal. Um, 2025, he was debarred for 5 years. I swear this guy got indicted. If I was a pro, I would have looked all this up before. He was questioned by Congress. I swear this guy got indicted. He's part of this indictment. He's not indicted with it, but he's part of this group who came up with this conspiracy to conceal the nature of COVID-19 and its origin, and to push the zoonotic explanation for its outbreak, and to try and get a grant back that had been canceled. I can't be making this up. All right. Well, I looked around. He hasn't been indicted. He is part of this indictment. But I was thinking a couple years ago that there had been some sort of legal action against him, and I must just be remembering the congressional probe against him, and that resulted in his group EcoHealth, which he was the president of, being defunded from HHS, and I must be thinking of something else. Anyway, he might yet be indicted. He's a co-conspirator in this indictment against David Morens. Now, David Morens, who I showed you on screen earlier, it's this guy right here. He was a top advisor to Fauci, and during the pandemic, he took on a role of trying to get back a grant for bat coronavirus research in China that had been canceled at the beginning of the pandemic because of concern that the pandemic was an outbreak from the Wuhan lab. And his NIH canceled his grant. So he, Daszak, and others conspired to get that grant reinstated or to get a new grant. And they also conspired to hide the origins of the virus and to shut down the lab leak theory and promote the zoonotic explanation for COVID-19. To that end, they concealed their text messages, their communications. They took steps to hide them from FOIA requests. So this is a conspiracy This is not an indictment that gets at who is responsible exactly for the virus, not quite, but it gets into the cover up. It's about the cover up of the Wuhan lab's role, and it's about greed, trying to get the grant money back, and it's about hiding from FOIA requests, which is hiding from the public's ability to scrutinize the work you're doing with their tax dollars. David Morens served as a senior advisor in NIAID's Office of the Director from 2006 to 2022. That would be Anthony Fauci. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Morens, two conspirators, one of them is Peter Daszak, and others conspired to have an NIH grant for bat coronavirus research reinstated after it had been canceled by the NIH due to information pointing at the Wuhan Institute of Virology being the source of the COVID-19 outbreak. To this end, Morens and others concealed information and misled officials, the scientific community, the media, and the public as to the true origins of the virus. And this is why I say this is the first indictment that really gets at to who is responsible for the pandemic. Because this conspiracy robbed us of the ability, or at least got very much in the way of our ability to discuss the virus and its origins right there at the very, very beginning of 2020. And instead, it got stigmatized and people got banned for talking about it. People lost their jobs. People lost funding for talking about it. And then it became a conspiracy theory, which, if you believed in the lab leak theory, you're an idiot, you're anti-science or something like that. And there was all this back and forth. And these people, what they did was harmful to science, harmful to the pursuit of science. And we're still suffering from the damage they did because they actually misled officials and people in the scientific community about the origin of the virus. He has been charged with conspiracy against the United States, 2 counts of destruction or alteration or falsification of federal records, and 2 counts of concealment, removal, and mutilation of records. He's facing up to 46 years in prison. He's in his 70s now, so it would be the rest of his life. Beginning in 2020 and continuing for years after, Morens and others used their personal Gmail accounts to communicate about the canceled grant, getting another one, and controlling the narrative regarding the origins of COVID-19. They used Gmail accounts, private Gmail accounts, so as to avoid FOIA request. For example, on April 28th, 2020, co-conspirator 1, which would be Peter Daszak, I believe, in an email titled "More FOIAs on the Way," this time to Fauci, including emails to us, wrote to Morens to alert him, hey, these FOIAs are targeting senior NIAID official 1, that's Fauci. These FOIA requests are targeting Fauci and looking for emails between us and others about Wuhan. Morens responded by thanking Daszak for the heads up and stating, we all dread these FOIAs. They take up so much time. Now, I'm pretty confident that co-conspirator 1 is Daszak, but there's another person it could be, which is, the name starts with a B. I can't think of it right now. I better find it. Not a B. I'm thinking of someone else. It's Koosh. Gerald Koosh, who was at Boston University's National Emerging Infectious Disease Laboratory Institute. And so here you have an example. This was posted by Josh Christensen, who's a reporter for the New York Post. This is an email to Peter Daszak from David Morens. And it says, Jerry and Peter, this is sent from my Gmail account. Please send all replies here to his Gmail account because this is not his government account, which means it's not under FOIA. I have let Tony, Fauci, know, but have not spoken to him directly. There are things I can't say except Tony is aware, and I have learned that there are ongoing efforts within NIH to steer through this with minimal damage to you, Peter, and colleagues, and to NIH and NIAID. No guarantees, but let us hope. I imagine this will be handled at the level of Francis and Tony, meaning Francis Collins, within NIH, and I don't expect to be in the loop. But this is regarding, it says 2R01, just gives a number. I don't know exactly what that specific thing is about. But that's co-conspirator 1 and 2 are Daszak and Koosh. So I don't know what their number is exactly. I think one is Dajak, though. We might get a context clue here in a minute that tells us. Morens enlisted members of a prominent professional medical organization to speak out on behalf of the back coronavirus grant. Remember, that's what they want to get back, is the grant to study back coronaviruses in China. It got canceled because there was information and there was speculation that the work they were doing on that in Wuhan resulted, specifically the gain of function research on bat viruses, resulted in an outbreak that the whole world was now under. So that grant was canceled. They want to get it back. This is an email from May 3rd. Colleagues, I need to keep this correspondence off of U.S. government emails for obvious reasons, so am sending from Gmail. I am under multiple FOIAs already, and co-conspirator 1 is facing orchestrated death threats. We, plus co-conspirator 2 and I, have advised co-conspirator 1, so that's Kushin Dajak, to lay low, not go to the press, work through NIH to get a face-to-face meeting, and let others come to his defense. Morens falsely stated in an email on May 15th, 2020, that the NIAID FOIA officer had told him that he could cover his rear by deleting emails and making use of FOIA delays. So we need to use Gmail only for these communications. We need to be sensitive to that, he told co-conspirator. Now, here's a clue about somebody who's going to be a cooperating witness. It's the NIAID FOIA officer. Because how could they state in this indictment that he was falsely told by that officer to do this? I think it's because investigators have talked to the NIAID FOIA officer from that time period. And he has either presented information or sworn out that, no, I never told them that. This is what I instructed on them to do. And then they find this email where Morens is claiming that the FOIA officer told him something else. So I think this FOIA officer is going to be a witness in this case. Another email, May 16, 2020, Morens emailed co-conspirator 1 about an article that he was drafting in part to benefit co-conspirator 1 and his company, meaning EcoHealth. It is Dajak. It's definitely Dajak and EcoHealth. We all agree that we want to keep off any fingerprints of the North Carolina scientist and any EcoHealth or grant colleagues. I need to keep this off of government email and government phone text. July 2nd, 2020, Morens sent an email from his NIH account to Gmail. Subject line, co-conspirator 1 in Outlook, delete or send to Gmail. So Dajak messed up, sent him something like, no, don't do that. Don't send it to my government email. Send it to my Gmail and delete it. July 3rd, the next day, Morens submitted and caused submission of a scientific commentary to a prominent medical journal for publication that advocated COVID-19 emerged from nature and not from a lab. The piece was authored by Morens and was intended to benefit Company 1 and co-conspirator 1. I'm not positive, but I believe what they're talking about is this right here. Emerging Pandemic Diseases, How We Got COVID-19 by David Morens and Anthony Fauci. This shows it was published August 15th of 2020. That email was July 3rd, 2020. So about a month later, it makes sense to me. I think this is it. And the reason they pushed this was because they wanted that grant back from NIH for EcoHealth. Morens was going to make money as a kickback for getting it reinstated. And they wanted to cover up what they had been doing in Wuhan. And so they tried to steer the conversation to say, nope, this is naturally emerging. We've been warning about a virus like this coming out of here for years. It's why we study it. And it completely changed the conversation, and it resulted in anybody who raised the idea that this was a result of the gain of function research and that there had been a lab leak, you were ostracized, you were ridiculed. It became taboo in the scientific community to entertain that idea. And it made it so that we could not honestly investigate the origins of the virus because the people who were complicit in its origins were covering it up. It was intended, according to the indictment, to benefit Peter Daszak and EcoHealth. Morens' efforts paid off when NIH awarded a $7.5 million grant to the same companies whose bat coronavirus grant had been canceled, EcoHealth and Peter Daszak. Upon learning of the grant approval, Morens sent Daszak an email saying, do I get a kickback? Daszak replied, of course there's a kickback. It starts with 5 more years of FOIA request. I just hope it doesn't culminate in 5 years in federal jail. Mens rea. Morens and others concealed or continued concealing their communications after this. David, I'm using your Gmail address to keep this out of the FOIA target. Then they go on to complain about anti-GMO and anti-vax groups and others, and they're trying to get FOIA requests, and they're taking a hard look at us. Attacks continue on EcoHealth. November 19th, 2020. Pay attention to the email address you use. The less we provide the enemy, the better. Guys, who's the enemy in this context? It's you and me. It's anybody who was trying to FOIA what the hell had been going on at NIH and who the hell might be responsible for this pandemic, if anyone. And what the hell are you doing with our tax dollars in China? I learned from our FOIA lady, this is another email, February 24th, 2021, quote, I learned from our FOIA lady here how to make emails disappear after I am FOIA'd, but before the search starts. So I think we are all safe. And I completely agree with the account FOIA fan. Will the NIH FOIA lady be indicted next? Or is she a cooperating witness? There's the actual email. And if you look right here, the original message, look who's included on it. It's Morens, it's Kush, or Kesh, I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce it, and it's Peter Daszak. They're all included on this email. October 5th, 2021, Morens learns that few things are ever truly deleted. Quote, I now learn that every email I ever got or sent since 1998 is captured and will be turned over, whether or not I instantly deleted it. Please only contact me by Gmail or phone. I need to scrupulously rely on those exclusively. Then the group learned that some of the emails that they had sent to each other were going to become public. October 6, 2021, Daszak emailed Morens and Kush and others to warn them about prior emails that were either sent to or received from Morens' NIH account that could become public because of FOIA request. There's some embarrassing stuff in there. The most heinous is some details of what happened with NIH cancellation, my response, and how you helped me shape it. If these emails are with reporters, they'll use them to create stories. Meaning, they're going to find out that after my grant got canceled, I went to you and we coordinated on how to get it reinstated. And the headline that he proposed as a hypothetical was this: powerful cabal of scientists from within NIH helped draft anti-lab leak narrative. And another one: Daszak suspected Wuhan leak may have continued gain of function work, or Wuhan lab may have continued gain of function work outside of NIH grant. What a confession. What a confession that is, guys. That's mens rea, that state of mind of the conspirators, the defendants. It should be defendants plural. They know what they're doing. That is a confession of what they were doing. A powerful cabal of scientists, Daszak, Fauci, Kush, and Morens, within NIH helped draft anti-lab leak narrative. Daszak suspected the Wuhan Institute of Virology may have continued gain-of-function work outside of the NIH grant, which might explain the origin of the COVID-19 pandemic. They were worried about those headlines. We were working in a cabal to orchestrate stuff, quote unquote. Another confession. It should be safe to communicate with you, Daszak, and others as long as we only use my private Gmail. Keep all communications like this on private email so that it can't be retrieved via FOIA. Otherwise, we'll be facing Salem witch trials. This is December 7th, 2021. September 15th, 2022, and September 18th, 2022, Morens, Kush, Daszak, and others participated in an email exchange regarding FOIA requests. They anticipated headlines that might come about if these emails were discovered, such as, quote, leading scientists conspire to undermine investigation into lab leak theory via back channel. Another confession. What was really going on? They sure did. They sure did conspire, didn't they? That's exactly what they did. Leading scientists conspired to undermine the investigation into the lab leak theory. And in so doing, they deceived the scientific community with papers like this. They deceived the media and they deceived the American people. And I think all of us reading this, hearing about this, as thankful as we are that these people are that at least one of them is indicted, thankful to see this action by DOJ. I know for me, it gets me angry all over again. And I bet it gets you angry all over again too. The whole world suffered because of what these men were involved in, what they enabled, and then what they covered up. Now, the charges, like I said earlier, the charges are conspiracy against the United States, 2 counts of destruction of records, and 2 counts of concealment or removal of records. I think there will be a superseding indictment. I'm hoping that the co-conspirators will be indicted as well. I don't know that they will, but I am hoping that they will. The indictment goes on to describe the same thing, but you get the idea. The manner and means of the conspiracy, Morens, co-conspirator 1 and co-conspirator 2, and others known and unknown to the grand jury, used Morens' personal non-government issued email to transfer and exchange federal records that pertain to Morens' responsibility as senior advisor to Fauci. The federal records created, transferred, and exchanged via his personal email included controlled work product of NIH. So let me zoom this in. Controlled work product of NIH, which should have been on official accounts only. Records concerning efforts to influence NIH to fund EcoHealth. Records concerning EcoHealth-backed coronavirus grant termination, reinstatement, negotiation, including drafting and editing of statements and responses on behalf of EcoHealth. Records concerning public writings on the origins of COVID-19. Records concerning congressional oversight of NIH and its grants related to COVID-19. Records concerning Morens' access to senior NIAID official 1, which is Fauci, and his use of that access to convey information on behalf of EcoHealth. Morens' co-conspirator 1 and 2, and others known and unknown to the grand jury, concealed, removed, destroyed, and caused the concealment and removal of federal records to evade FOIA and the Federal Records Act. They also used these communications and more in stature, connections, and access within the scientific community as a result of his position under Fauci to advance the interest of EcoHealth within the NIH, but also in the scientific community and publicly. They concealed communication so they could communicate with others in the scientific community in support of EcoHealth and published papers, articles, and other writings supportive of EcoHealth. Morens and the other co-conspirators and others used Morens' government-issued email account, 1, reminding Morens to avoid communicating on that account, and 2, explicitly requesting that those contacting Morens do so through his non-government issued account. Morens instructed others how to avoid FOIA searches. Let's see. They shared facts and press reports with each other clandestinely about COVID-19 and EcoHealth, information regarding the administrative proceedings on bat coronavirus grant, information regarding congressional inquiries, activities related to COVID-19, the bat coronavirus, et cetera, regarding the drafting and publication of articles, editorials, and letters, information related to FOIA request. They developed talking points, they anticipated press reactions, and they coordinated their responses. Daszak provided and promised to provide Morens with things of value for and because of the official acts he took that were favorable to EcoHealth and Daszak. Morens received and agreed to receive things of values from Daszak because of his official acts that were to help him and EcoHealth. The behind-the-scenes shenanigans, as they refer to it. And it goes on and on describing the things that they did. But it's more of the same. They talked about this and they only did it on the Gmail account. They tried to avoid this and they tried to avoid that. I went through and grabbed you all the highlights of these emails. This is the section of the indictment that all of those come from. All of his communications about this stuff should have been FOIAble. They also submitted things within NIH. As people in NIH were trying to do good work on the pandemic, they misled them. I'm not sure how much blood is on their hands, but blood's on these guys' hands for what they did. That's what makes me really angry. People's careers faltered and fell apart. Their lives fell apart because of what these guys were involved in. You can't blame everything on Morens and Daszak and Kush and the other people and Fauci. You can't blame everything on them. But a lot of it falls on them. And the cover-up prevented us from understanding the virus that much more quickly, understanding its origin that much more quickly, and developing a better response. So may this be the first of several indictments against people who were involved in activities that led to the creation of that virus and for their role in the cover-up of it and misleading the scientific community, the media, and the public. I look forward to tracking this case, but I have to admit, the more I think about it, the more pissed off I get all over again. And I bet you do too, because we all suffered. To some extent, I lost my career because of the COVID pandemic. In retrospect, it's been a blessing to be where I'm at now. But it wasn't all that great for a while. It really sucked to have your 12-year career gone. And I know many of you experienced worse because you lost loved ones. And we've all struggled to figure out just WTF happened. And we've all suffered for being treated like imbeciles and whatever else for thinking that it came from a lab. And the scientific community has suffered greatly because officials that were supposed to be sources and guides and um, resources for scientific investigation, the scientific community and the medical community suffered because they were misled by the very people who were most responsible or were significantly responsible for the creation of the virus. So, all right, I look forward to following this case. What attorneys have they hired any attorneys yet? No, hasn't been filed on here yet. He surrendered his passport. Conditions of release. He made his initial appearance on the 27th, which was the same day the indictment was unsealed. All right, hopefully more people get indicted. I want all those people. I want the FOIA lady indicted. I want Daszak and Kush indicted. Maybe Fauci. It's not clear to me exactly what criminality Fauci was involved in with this, as what we learned in these emails. But but it seems like he was involved at least in the cover up of this. So I'll be tracking it. All right, lastly for this episode, let's go to Comey. Now, I'm just going to go ahead. I don't know, what's it called? I'm not going to bury the lead or need to move that bookmark. I'm not going to hide the ball from you guys or anything. On the same day that serious charges were filed against Dr. David Morens for his role in deceiving government officials, scientists, health professionals, and the American people as to the true origins of COVID-19, unserious charges were also filed against former FBI Director James Comey for posting seashells on his Instagram. What a contrast. And I know there's a bunch of people who hate James Comey. But guys, it doesn't matter if you like him or hate him or are indifferent. The indictment against him is a bunch of hooey. It's much weaker than the first indictment that I covered extensively last year. It's much weaker than that indictment. And I can't imagine this indictment going very far at all. At least, I will say, at least this indictment isn't fatally flawed like the first one was, because this indictment was signed by an actual U.S. attorney with the authority to bring an indictment. So there's that. Whereas the previous indictment out of the Eastern District of Virginia that I covered last fall was signed by Lindsay Halligan, who didn't have the authority to bring the indictment in the first place. However, Ellis Boyle is like Lindsay Halligan, Ellis Boyle is the second interim U.S. attorney to be appointed to this Eastern District of North Carolina U.S. Attorney's Office, and he's well past the 120 days in office. But I haven't seen any action where people are trying to get him thrown out. I think the district judges the district judges have voted to retain him. I don't know. But Matthew R. Petrarca is the name on here. That's his signature. And he's an AUSA, Assistant United States Attorney in the Criminal Division, and he has the authority to bring the indictment. So I don't think this indictment's going to get dismissed on the same grounds as the last one was. However, this indictment, which is just these 3 pages, it's laughable. It has to do with the 8647 seashell post that Comey made on his Insta. And it's all it says is that on May 15th, 2025, in the Eastern District of North Carolina, the defendant, James Bryan Comey Jr., did knowingly and willfully make a threat to take the life of and inflict bodily harm upon the President of the United States, in that he publicly posted a photograph on the internet social media site Instagram, which depicted seashells arranged in a pattern making out 8647, which a reasonable recipient who is familiar with the circumstances would interpret as a serious expression of intent to do harm to the President of the United States. I think that's a huge reach, and I think that's just a big leap of interpretation to say that. Count two is knowingly and willfully transmitting in interstate or foreign commerce a communication that is a threat to kill another person. And that Comey specifically, by publishing the photograph of the seashells, made a threat against Trump specifically, and a reasonable recipient who is familiar with the circumstances would interpret it as a serious expression of intent to do harm to Trump. And then there's a forfeiture notice. Upon conviction of the offenses, any property, real or personal, which constitutes or derives from proceeds traceable to the said offense will be forfeited. Now, I don't know what proceeds you would get from posting 8647. I don't think he has a monetized Instagram account. The speculation I've seen is that Comey released a book, a fiction book, soon after this. So they're going to go for that maybe this was a publicity stunt to make more book sales. So they're going to go after the money he made on his novel that he released shortly after making the post. Okay. I think you're going to have difficulty tying those things together to prove that he made that money because of this Instagram post. But I don't think we're even going to get there because this thing is not going to survive. This is the post. The comment on it that Comey has is cool shell formation on my beach walk. Now, he's been asked about this a few times. He deleted the social media post shortly after making it because he saw people in the media saying that it was a threat against Trump, that it meant 8647. Take out Trump is the interpretation. And he saw that interpretation and he deleted it. He told media in subsequent interviews that that wasn't his intention, that when he saw it, he didn't make it. He found it on the beach as they were walking around. He decided to take a picture of it and post it. And it's someone else, which means it's someone else's shell formation. So if we interpret it as a political statement, okay, if we interpret it as a political statement, which everybody is, this is 47 represents Trump and the 86 means take out, we have to deal with that it's someone else's. Unless DOJ has a witness that saw Comey assemble the shells in this way. I believe Comey's story is he came upon it, found it on the beach, took a picture of it and posted it, and then later deleted it once he saw how people were interpreting it. But it's someone else's political message that Comey then came upon and took a picture of. That's going to be one of the defenses, is that, hey, my client didn't even do this. My client just took a picture of what someone else did. And then when he saw how it was being interpreted, deleted his post. But he's not the one who made the message. That's going to be a defense. Another thing is that would a reasonable person interpret this as a direct threat to do harm to someone? I don't know. I don't think so. I've used the expression 86 that many times, and when I've worked in the restaurant business. It's pretty common in the restaurant business to use 86 that order or 86 that item. Of course, it's also been used in mafia to 86, but it means take out, remove. People have used it to say 86 this political person. I think that's ill-advised, but to interpret this as a direct threat to President Trump, I think goes too far. And I don't understand how people can see this and seriously interpret it as a threat from Comey to Trump and then think that it's worth charging him over. It's just, how do you get there? It's too many leaps. It's such a big ask to go that far. And yeah, this is a grand jury indictment. So the grand jury was presented with evidence and that grand jury voted for it. But the district that this was voted in, the Eastern District of North Carolina, which is where Comey has a beach house, and that's the beach he was walking on when he found this, is very, very Republican. Like 60-70% voted for Trump. So I think the jury you're dealing with here, you could pull a favorable grand jury, and they hate Comey enough that they would go ahead and vote for this and perceive it as a threat. Prosecutors will also have to prove, according to the Justice Manual, they're going to have to prove that there was an intent to cause harm. It's not just he made a threat, it was that there was intention behind it. And right here in this criminal resource manual, it's part of the Justice Manual that's on justice.gov website. It says several decisions have cast light on the scope of 18 USC 871. That's the charge. And the requisite intent, which must be proved in prosecutions thereunder. Proof that threatening words were uttered in a context such that a reasonable person would interpret them as mere political hyperbole, idle talk, or jest indicates that the words do not constitute a threat within the scope of the statute. It is the view of the department, meaning DOJ, that an actual intent to carry out a threat is not a requisite to violate this statute, but as it says before that, so it's couching it, it's saying, look, there doesn't have to be an actual intent to carry it out by the person who makes it, but political hyperbole, idle talk, or jest, that's not enough. Requisite intent must be proved in prosecutions thereunder. And Turley gets into it in his article where he says, for the reasons that I would prefer, he makes a funny joke right there. He says, to convict Comey, the Justice Department will have to show that his adolescent picture was a true threat under 18 USC 871 and 875. It is not. The First Amendment is designed to protect unpopular speech. Popular speech rarely needs protection. It also protects bad and hateful speech. It even protects lies so long as those lies are not used for the purpose of fraud or other criminal conspiracies. In 1969, the Supreme Court declared a more direct threat protected under the First Amendment. In Watts v. United States, an 18-year-old anti-war protester exclaimed, quote, "If they ever make me carry a rifle, the first man I want to get in my sights is LBJ." While the court did rule that the statute criminalizing presidential threats is constitutional on its face, it emphasized that what is a threat must be distinguished from what is constitutionally protected speech. The court ruled that the expression of wanting to kill a president is, quote, a kind of crude, very crude offensive method of stating a political opposition to the president. Saying the same thing in shells is only further removed from criminal speech. And this is where this thing is going to fall apart. What Comey did is protected speech under the First Amendment. Even if you take it as being threatening, to some extent, even if you take it as being political, directly related to President Trump, that in context, he should have had understanding that it would be interpreted as a threat to Trump. If he has a history with using or being aware of the term 86 from his mafia prosecutions, and they drag up some case from 1989 or something, when Comey, that was an issue, or that was something that a defendant said in a case he prosecuted or something. So therefore, Comey understood that the expression 86 something has a meaning, that it has a violent nature to it. There's in some instances it's violent to say 86 a person. Let's say they proved that he had knowledge of that or awareness of it. Spelling out 8647 in seashells is not even close to what this 18-year-old war protester said, in which the Supreme Court found that that was protected speech. Should this thing go all the way, it won't. But should it get to the point where it's a First Amendment issue, this thing is covered by the First Amendment. He took a picture of someone else's, according to him, he took a picture of someone else's seashell formation arrangement and then posted it with a boomer comment. The fact that people made it out and interpreted it as a violent threat led him to delete the post and apologize. There's no way he gets convicted on this. There's no way he gets convicted on this. You can think he's an idiot for posting it. You can think he knew what he was doing. You can think that whatever. It doesn't matter. It's protected. And it's protected, number one. And number two, it doesn't go so far as to meet the definition of the intent to threat, the true threat, to be a true threat under 18 USC 871. It doesn't go far enough. Now, maybe, as I said earlier, maybe they have more information, such as text he sent. There it is. Such as text he sent concurrent to posting on Instagram, maybe Instagram DMs. Maybe they have some other communications, or there's some witness who's going to say that Comey was hoping someone would be inspired by it or something. Maybe there's more. Maybe there's more stuff that is going to feed into the context of him posting that and what his intent was with posting that. But I don't really think so. I think that just like how do I say this? I think they indicted a ham sandwich. That's the best way to say it. I think that what happened here is the prosecutors in the Eastern District of North Carolina got a Republican grand jury to indict a ham sandwich named James Comey. But I don't think this survives. I don't think it survives to where the defense even has to put. I think if this actually does go to trial, which I don't think it will, but if it were to go to trial, it's a Rule 29. It's failure to state an offense, and the judge dismisses it. But I don't even know if it's going to get that far, because you can't just say that this right here is a threat, a specific threat, and that carries the intention to do harm to an individual, that posting this. You need more than that. You need Comey contemporaneously with this Instagram post communicating about how he meant it as a threat. You need witnesses saying Comey told me he hoped somebody would act on it. Or you need more. You need text messages, emails, witnesses. You need more that speaks to the message and the intent behind this. If Comey down here in his comment on it had said, I completely agree with this message and wish for it to someday, or the day can't come soon, even if it said the day can't come soon enough, or I agree, I hope this happens soon, or something like that. Okay. I don't think you get him convicted on threatening the president, but I could see how that could be interpreted as a threat. But 86 doesn't just have one meaning. It doesn't mean murder. That's one interpretation of it. Other interpretations are remove or take out. And how do we normally deal with political candidates in this country? We vote them out, or we impeach them, or we force them to resign from investigations or something. Like, I understand people hate Comey, guys, but I just think it's reading way, way too much into this to see it, one, as a threat or support for threatening the president, and two, to indict him on it as a specific threat. I mean, the language here that a reasonable recipient who is familiar with the circumstances would interpret as a serious expression of an intent to do harm. You need more than just this picture to get there. Maybe they got it. Maybe DOJ has witnesses and emails and text messages, voicemails, something that backs that up. Maybe they're going to go through Comey's old mafia cases and they're going to find where Comey referenced in a previous case or investigation back in the 80s or 90s some mafioso using the term 86 to mean murder their opponent. Maybe, maybe they're going to go back and pull that out. I think this is silly. I think this is silly, guys. I don't understand it. I mean, I do understand it, but I think it's a waste of resources, and I think it's bound to result in failure for DOJ and embarrassment. And one of the things that makes me feel pretty confident that that is how it's going to end up is that there is an inverse relationship between where's Trump's there's an inverse relationship between the amount of comments Trump makes on a criminal case and its success. So if you notice, the criminal cases that go the furthest and the legal actions that DOJ is engaged in that are the most successful are the ones that Trump comments on the least. And so seeing Trump write this just makes me think, yeah, this thing ain't got a chance in hell. If this was a serious action and it was really meant to go and get a conviction of Comey, Trump wouldn't say anything about it. And Todd Blanche has been talking about it. It's just too much. I did look and see. I looked up the exact charge. That statute. What is it? Title 18, United States Code Section 871A. That's the charge for count one. I went and looked up to see what other kinds of cases people have been convicted on, because there have been a number of people who have threatened the president and they've been charged under that statute. All of them were way more specific. Now, I haven't looked at every single, there were 92 cases I got hits on that had that charge in them. And I haven't read every single one. But at a glance, all of them, especially the most recent ones, they had way more to them. It had, the person was like actually took steps to make it happen. The person repeatedly and explicitly conveyed the message in no uncertain terms that that's what they wanted to see happen, or they wanted someone to do it, or they were going to do it. The language was very, very violent and specific. None of them were a veiled threat, which is what you have to interpret this as, some sort of veiled, coded threat. None of them were that. They were, all of the cases I looked at so far were very specific and violent. Now, don't get me wrong. I do think that threats against the president or threats against anyone should be investigated. And I think when there's when there's threats, they ought to be taken seriously. And I think it's true that credible threats ought to be investigated. Those two things can be true, but Comey's seashell post was simply irresponsible at the worst. And bringing charges based on that Insta post is silly. That's what I think. It's not that I don't think that threats against the president, it's not that I think threats against the president are silly or shouldn't be investigated. That's definitely not it. And it's not that I think Comey's seashell post was A-okay, no harm, no foul, whatever. I think it was irresponsible. I think it was kind of a dumb post anyway, regardless of what numbers were there. I mean, it's just hokey, or whatever word you want to think of. A cool shell formation on my beach walk. Whatever, dude. I can't, just whatever. But interpreting it to the level of this is just way too far. I think by the First Amendment, it's too far. He can post whatever numbers he wants to spelled out in seashells. Even if it were to mean, even if Comey were to intend it to be a message of take out 47, take out Trump, remove Trump. Comey could have, if Comey had written, if Comey wrote out on an Instagram post, it's time to remove Trump. Or if he had posted this and then wrote down here in a comment, it's time we remove Trump from office. That's not a threat. That is not a specific violent threat against Trump. And interpreting it as such just goes too far to bring charges. And now I want to show you some of the types of the instances where somebody has been charged with this type of conduct. Okay, so first up, we got United States v. Butler. This is in the Western District of Louisiana. This is from March of 2026. Justin Chadwick Butler, he's hit with the same charge of threatening the president. And right here, this is what he said. He made social media postings on accounts that he controlled that were directed at Speaker Johnson and President Trump. These posts include stating, for example, that the speaker, quote, couldn't lie so smoothly with bullet holes in his face, that the speaker is a traitor and death to traitors, and that Butler, the defendant, hopes I see lots of dead ICE agents and traitor Mike with a patriotic bullet through his lying face soon. I think holes in traitors' faces is the next step. And then he wrote that the speaker and President Trump, quote, a real patriot would kill some of these traitors, would drop those two traitors. Keller noted that this is just an indictment, blah, blah, blah. So that's explicit violent threats, right? So that's Butler. Now let's look at Rome. Rome, South Carolina. Eric Anthony Rome threatened the president of the United States when he sent a letter from the Kirkland Correctional Institute in Columbia, South Carolina, to the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews in Chicago that read, for several years, I've kept track of you and all of the work you at the IFCJ do. You have quite a scam going on there. I mean, you and your people have been screwing hardworking people out of their money for years, all in the name of Christian Zionism. Your organization is more like Jew sucking Christians dry. How come it never goes the other way with your fellowship? A bunch of other nasty stuff. Blah, 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 as opposed to the fabricated genocide like hollow hoax. Let's see. Blah, blah. I see images of all the murders in the IDF, blah, blah, blah. Well, at least America has nothing to do with your kind, but Mossad has their hands so far up Trump's ass, it's hard to know where he ends and Israel begins, not to mention the fact that a quarter of Congress has dual citizenship with Israel and AIPAC runs the place, but we, the Aryan Brotherhood, and a few associates, such as in the IRGC, are not going to sit idle. We have been mapping out IFCJ and will begin hunting you down. We are going to capture and video your decapitation. We're going to kill you as well as Bishop. You can take that to the bank. After all, I know how much you people love banks. We are also going to shoot Ambassador Mike Huckabee and his daughter Sarah. These are guarantees. Enjoy having Trump in office while you can because we are going to kill him too. Signed, Eric Rome. So, explicit, violent threats. Intent to do harm is right there, very easily discernible, not veiled, not coded. Hamlet out of Florida, and this was filed in February. Same charge, threats against the president, 18 USC 871A. Affidavit. U.S. Secret Service investigated this just like they investigated the Comey one. Let's see. There is probable cause to believe Hamlet made threats to the life of President Trump via emails, phone calls, and in person. This affidavit is based on my knowledge. May 17th and May 18th, 2025. From his email, he sent numerous emails threatening the life of Trump. The email excerpts are below. I'm Marcus Hamlet, and I'm publicly threatening Donald Trump. He's very dangerous, and I'll stop at nothing to stop him. I'm planning on murdering Donald Trump. Marcus Hamlet has a plan to murder Donald Trump. Marcus Hamlet was in Washington, D.C. on these dates known to the government and my ex-wife. I went there to plan to murder Trump. And so on and so forth. No coded language there. Okay, this is United States v. Mather. I don't know how he likes his last name being pronounced. Don't really care because sounds like he's a bad person. Count one. He threatened to do harm to the vice president when he wrote, I am going to find out where he, the vice president, is going to be and use my M14 automatic gun and kill him. He's also been charged with distribution of child porn. So, yeah, bad dude. Florida, Hamlet. I just read this one, didn't I? Yeah. I grabbed that one twice. Daniels, North Carolina, Middle District of North Carolina. Let's see. Here's the indictment. I want the indictment, not that. All right, let's see. What did he say? November 13th, 2025. Christian Wolf Daniels, also known as Clyde Franco, made threats against the president against 18 USC. What was it? 371, 871. Wait. DJT, you aren't just related to Hitler, are you? You are him. You reincarnated the year after he died. Don't let him leave that effing White House. That is GD demand, not an effing request at all. There is a chance to actually end and the global population to see that our entire belief on spirituality and etc is true. Whoever allows him or any member of this administration or anyone in an attempt to leave, stop them by any means. But DJT is to be taken alive, not killed. Donald, I'll be seeing you eye to eye. I will be the last thing your eyes see as you draw your last breath. Wow. No coded language there. Count two, another threat. Donald J. Trump, quick question. Are you scared? I hope so, man. I'm going to personally do the medieval torture on you. It'll be glorious. Count three. Another one against Alexis Wilkins, Cash's girlfriend. Tell Cash I'll be seeing him personally. Death coming soon to you all. All right. No coded language there. No interpretation needed. Sandvik, North Dakota. Also from this year. No, last year, November 5th, 2025. This is... Let's see. I didn't see that charge there. Where's the... All right, September 17th, 2025. concerning internet posts directed to Trump and Kash Patel. God's judgment will be about blood. I will rescue God's people first. Patel, I'm waiting for you. Secret Service, it is no secret I'm your biggest threat. You better get here fast. Secret Service, FBI, CIA, Mossad, KGB, I'm in Fargo, North Dakota. Come get me. Let's see. Your insides will soon be your outsides, is the message he wrote to Fargo police. Trump, can you feel my footsteps coming? Death is now marching towards the failed and weak Donald Trump. Look up to the sky. You will see the sign of the coming death of Trump. Okay. And he goes on and on and on. Lovely person, right? Again, no interpretation needed. It's very clear that he's making threats. Eastern District of Virginia date filed July 10th. So this is United States v. Stinson. Affidavit. Summary of facts. Defense database. Stinson was an officer in the U.S. Coast Guard from 88 to 21. And Antifa always wins in the end. Violence is inherently necessary. Together we are Antifa. Together we can kill the fascism. Target practice tonight. I set some orange emoticon on the railing. Let's shoot some oranges. Needs more than that. Needs to be more specific than that. In postings across various accounts, Stinson has consistently used a group of code names to refer to President Trump, including the Orange, Orange MF, Orange Thug, Krasnov, TFG, One Ear, or an Orange emoticon. These code names are directly explained by Stinson or implied through context to be references to Donald Trump. My voice is starting to go. So here's an example of one where there is some sort of coded language, but there's violent rhetoric to accompany that coded language, and the coded language is explained in the context or in other posts what he means. This morning, I would like to hit Trump in the head with a or. He wants us dead. I can say the same things about him. Somebody ought to It involves a rifle and scope, but I can't talk about it here. Who wants to join me? We could solve the solvable part of this problem in a crack. Then we can focus on the coronavirus itself. And he goes on and on. I can't shoot, but I can drive. Let's take care of things. Yes, I would pull the trigger. Wouldn't you? So the whole point of me grabbing all these, and I'll stop there. The whole point of me grabbing all these is that the most recent cases of this exact same charge that's brought against Comey, the threats were overt, they were direct, they were violent, there was rhetoric to go with it. And in the one instance where it was coded language, that coded language was explained or was understandable what it meant, and there was violent rhetoric that went along with it that explicitly called for violence or threatened to do violence. You don't have that here with this. You don't have that with this. I did see Blanche referenced, hey, we recently brought a case in this same district where a leftist person, no, it was a man who threatened Joe Biden, right? This is December 8th, 2025. And the guy was, what's his name? He got 27 months in prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release for threatening to kill Joe Biden. He ended up pleading guilty to the charges on August 19th, 2025. It was Michael James Fair, age 31, and he posted several messages on X on January 10th, 2025, including death threats against Biden. And these threats were specific. I think I looked them up here. And then when the Secret Service agents went to interview him, he threatened to kill one of them. So he didn't post seashells on his Insta. He did a lot more than that. All right, so I'm going to cover the case. I'm going to cover the case, and we'll follow it together. It'll be a new playlist on my Rumble and YouTube. But you know, if you really hate Comey and think he's a no good, very bad person, I think you're going to be disappointed in this case. And yeah, but it's not the only one. DOJ prosecutors in Virginia are pursuing separate charges against Comey for allegedly leaking classified info, which he's already been looked at, and we've already talked about it to death last fall when I covered that other case that was fatally flawed from the very beginning. And I'll do it all over again. I'll do it all over again if they bring it. So, all right, that's it. Thank you guys for listening. My voice is about shot now after going over all these cases. And my allergies have been particularly bad this spring. Whatever's going on, man, it's been miserable. And I hope all these plants and flowers that I'm allergic to die. I'm ready for fall. I'm ready for fall. I was on a really good run of not having bad allergies, but now they are. Y'all don't care about that. Anyway, thank y'all for listening to me babble on. I appreciate it. And thank you for all the support, all the coffee and the Substack subscriptions. I really appreciate it. However you support the show, I really appreciate it, guys. Thanks for listening, and y'all stay human, stay blessed. I'll see you on the next one.